Sheriff Logan Carter moved like a shadow through the abandoned warehouse. The air was thick with the scent of oil and rust, the only sounds the faint hum of distant highway traffic, and the slow drip of a leaking pipe. The information had been clear. This place was being used by Los Sangre for something big. But what? He stepped over scattered crates, his boots barely making a sound on the concrete floor. A quick scan of the dimly lit room revealed tire tracks fresh. Someone had been here recently. He crouched, running a finger through the dirt. Still damp. Then he saw it. A row of metal cages stacked against the far wall. Inside, terrified eyes stared back at him men, women, and even children, their faces pale with fear. Their mouths gagged, their wrists bound. Human trafficking. The cartel's latest business in Los Robles. Rage coiled in Logan's chest, but he forced it down. He needed to move smart. Carefully, he reached for his radio, but before he could speak, a low click echoed behind him. "Sheriff Carter," a voice sneered. "You picked the wrong night to play hero." Logan didn't turn immediately. His mind worked fast, calculating distance, numbers, angles. He had walked into an ambush. Rookie mistake. "Funny," Logan said, slowly raising his hands. "I was just about to say the same to you." 3 men stepped into view. All armed. All trained. Not your average street thugs, these guys moved like professionals. Mercenaries. One of them, a man with a jagged scar running down his cheek, stepped forward. "Los Sangre owns this town now, Sheriff," he said, voice thick with amusement. "And this? This is your only warning." Logan smirked. "You sure about that?" Before the man could react, Logan moved. A swift, brutal step forward, his left hand grabbing the mercenary's wrist, twisting the gun away as his right elbow drove into the man's throat. The second man lunged. Logan ducked, pivoting, sending him crashing into a crate. The third thug pulled a knife. Big mistake. Logan caught his wrist mid-swing, twisted hard, and the blade clattered to the ground. A second later, Logan drove a knee into the man's ribs, knocking him flat. 30 seconds. 3 men down. Logan exhaled, rolling his shoulders. Then he heard the sound that made his stomach turn cold, a phone vibrating in the pocket of the unconscious mercenary. Logan reached down, flipping it open. A single message blinked on the screen. "Los Sangre owns this town. This was your first and only warning." Logan stared at the message for a second, before pulling out an old, battered phone from his pocket. His fingers tacked a code he hadn't used in years. Sierra Delta Echo. Ghost Protocol. Los Robles, Texas. Message sent. Somewhere across the country, his old team would see it. And they would come. Logan slipped the mercenary's phone into his pocket, his mind already racing ahead. Los Sangre wasn't bluffing. They had grown bold, too bold. The old rules of crime in Los Robles were gone. This wasn't just drug running or intimidation anymore. Human trafficking meant deeper connections, higher stakes. Someone powerful was backing them. He had to move fast. He turned back to the cages, his eyes scanning for anything he could use. A rusted crowbar lay nearby. He grabbed it and jammed it into the first lock, forcing it open with a grunt. The captives inside flinched as the door creaked. "It's okay," Logan said, keeping his voice low. "I'm getting you out." A woman, no older than 20, hesitated before stepping forward, her hands shaking as she removed her gag. They said no one could stop them," she whispered. Logan's jaw tightened. They were wrong. He moved quickly, breaking the locks on the other cages. The prisoners, weak and malnourished, looked at him with wary hope. "Stay low, move fast," he instructed. "Head out the back and run straight to the sheriff's station. Tell them Logan sent you." A few nodded, but before they could move, the distant growl of engines sent a wave of dread through the room. Logan's head snapped toward the entrance. More were coming. No time for subtlety. He pulled his sidearm and signaled for the captives to go. They hesitated until the headlights of approaching vehicles cut through the warehouse windows like knives. "Go. Now." Logan barked. They ran. The first black SUV skidded to a stop outside. Doors swung open. More mercenaries, dressed in dark tactical gear, poured out like a flood. Logan took cover behind a stack of crates as the first shots rang out, bullets ripping through the wood. He fired back, taking down one of them before shifting position. Outnumbered. Pinned down. He needed an exit. His eyes flicked toward the loading dock. If he could get there, he could lose them in the alleys. But then, a chilling voice cut through the chaos, amplified by a speaker. "Sheriff Carter," it drawled. "We've been watching you." Logan clenched his jaw. The voice was familiar. Too familiar. "You've got two choices," it continued. "Walk away and live, or fight and watch this town burn." Logan's grip on his gun tightened. There was no choice. He aimed at the nearest target and squeezed the trigger. The war for Los Robles had begun. The sun barely touched the horizon when Logan Carter stepped out of his patrol car, the weight of the previous night still clinging to him. Los Robles looked the same: dusty streets, sleepy diners, the occasional rancher's truck rumbling past, but he knew better. Beneath the small-town charm, something was rotting. The cartel had dug its claws deep, and last night had proven they weren't afraid to tighten their grip. He adjusted his hat, glancing toward Dolores' diner, where the scent of fresh coffee mixed with fried bacon. He needed answers, and he knew exactly where to get them. Inside, the morning rush had just begun. Locals occupied their usual spots, chatting about cattle prices and high school football, blissfully unaware that their town was on the verge of war. Behind the counter, Dolores poured coffee, her sharp eyes catching Logan's entrance. "Rough night, Sheriff?" she asked, sliding a cup his way before he even sat down. Logan took it with a nod. Could say that. Before he could elaborate, the door chimed. A man entered, moving with the kind of discipline that never truly left soldiers, no matter how long they'd been out of the fight. Michael Ghost Grant, dressed in a civilian doctor's attire, but carrying himself like a man who could dismantle someone with his bare hands, took the stool beside Logan. "Didn't take you long," Logan muttered. "Didn't have to," Ghost replied, his voice calm, measured. "Your message was loud and clear." Logan took a sip of his coffee, glancing at his old friend. Once a combat medic in their unit, Ghost had walked away from war, but war never really let go. "Los Sangre's getting bold," Logan said quietly. "Last night, they had mercenaries. Trained, disciplined. Not some street gang." Ghost exhaled, rubbing his temple. "That explains why my clinic's been busier than usual. More injuries, more frightened people who won't talk." He paused, his gaze hardening. "How bad?" Logan set his cup down. "They're trafficking people now." Ghost's jaw tightened, his fingers flexing as if itching for a weapon. "Then it's worse than I thought." Before Logan could respond, another figure entered the diner, this time with purpose. Victoria Lane, the town's only real journalist, stormed toward them, her phone gripped tightly in one hand. Her usually neat hair was slightly disheveled, a sign that she hadn't slept. "Tell me you know," she demanded, sliding into the booth across from them. "Tell me you saw what happened last night." Logan met her gaze. "I saw." She let out a sharp breath. "Then you know this isn't just another cartel operation. It's bigger. I've been tracking money transfers, land purchases, city council meetings that don't add up. They're not just moving in. They're taking over." Ghost leaned forward. "Taking over how?" Victoria's eyes burned with determination. "They're buying businesses, bribing officials, controlling what people see and hear. It's not just crime anymore, it's infrastructure." "Last night?" That was them making a statement. Logan exchanged a glance with Ghost. If what she was saying was true, then Los Sangre wasn't just expanding, they were embedding themselves into the town's foundation. Before Logan could say more, his radio crackled. "Sheriff, we got a problem." Deputy Ethan Blake's voice came through. "You're gonna want to see this." Logan tossed a few bills on the counter and stood. "Where?" "Old rail yard," Ethan replied. "Something's off." Logan nodded to Ghost and Victoria. "Let's go." Logan drove toward the old rail yard, his grip firm on the wheel. Ghost sat beside him, silent but alert, while Victoria scrolled through her phone, eyes scanning the data she had collected. The weight of the situation pressed on all of them. If Los Sangre wasn't just operating in the shadows anymore, but actively reshaping the town, then things were worse than he had thought. The rail yard came into view, a stretch of rusted tracks and abandoned warehouses, a place that should have been lifeless. But as Logan slowed the car, he saw Ethan standing near the fence, his expression tight with unease. Logan stepped out, his boots crunching against the gravel. "Talk to me." Ethan ran a hand through his short-cropped hair. "Tracks," he said, pointing at the dirt. Multiple vehicles, heavy ones, moving in and out. And not just trucks. Something bigger. Logan crouched, studying the deep grooves in the earth. Ethan was right. This wasn't the work of smugglers moving drugs or stolen goods. This was methodical, industrial. "Security?" Ghost asked. Ethan nodded. Saw two guys patrolling near the far warehouse. Military stance. Not locals. Logan's eyes narrowed. That confirmed it. Los Sangre wasn't just hiring extra muscle. They had professionals. He pulled out his binoculars, scanning the warehouse. The windows were dark, but something about the silence felt staged. No movement. No sounds. Just an empty building that wasn't actually empty. He lowered the binoculars. "They know we're watching." Victoria crossed her arms. "So what now?" Logan exhaled. "We go inside." Ethan shot him a look. "Sheriff, I know you like to handle things direct, but this is something else." Logan met his gaze. "That's exactly why we need to move now, before they dig in deeper." Ghost cracked his knuckles. "You got a plan?" Logan nodded. "Yeah. We walk in like we own the place." Minutes later, the four of them approached the warehouse. Logan led, his badge visible, his stance relaxed but ready. Ethan flanked him, one hand resting near his holster. Ghost walked slightly behind, his trained eyes scanning for threats, while Victoria kept close, her phone subtly recording. The door to the warehouse was slightly ajar. Logan pushed it open, stepping inside. The air smelled of metal and oil. Stacks of crates lined the walls, some marked with shipping codes, others unmarked entirely. The faint hum of a generator echoed from somewhere deeper inside. They weren't just storing things here, they were running operations. A voice cut through the stillness. "Sheriff Carter, you're trespassing." Logan turned slowly, finding himself face to face with a man in a dark suit, his expression unreadable. He wasn't armed, at least not visibly, but the way he carried himself screamed danger. Behind him, two other men lingered near a table covered in maps and documents. Logan took a step forward, hands resting casually at his sides. "Didn't realize this place had new owners." The man smirked. "Everything in Los Robles belongs to us now. You just haven't accepted it yet." Logan's fingers twitched. He was done talking. The war for the town had already begun. Logan held the man's gaze, reading him the way a seasoned predator assesses another. This wasn't just another cartel enforcer. His suit was too clean, his posture too controlled. This was a man who had seen battlefields, who understood power. Behind Logan, Ghost and Ethan shifted subtly, their own instincts kicking in. Victoria, ever the observer, kept her phone running, recording everything. The man in the suit smirked, stepping closer. "Sheriff Carter, let me save you some time. You're outnumbered, outplayed, and out of options. Los Robles isn't yours anymore." Logan's jaw tightened. "That so? Let me put it simply," the man continued. "You walk out of here right now, and we let you keep your little sheriff badge. Keep pretending you run things while we handle the real business." He gestured toward the crates. "We both win. You try to fight? Well, things get messy." Logan's fingers twitched near his belt. He wasn't a man who backed down, but he also wasn't stupid. This was a game of patience, and he needed more pieces on the board before making his move. He forced a smirk. "Appreciate the offer, but I'm not much for compromise." The man's expression hardened. A silent signal passed between him and his men. The two guards behind him reached for their weapons, but before they could pull, Logan moved. In a blur, he grabbed the nearest crate and shoved it forward, knocking one of them off balance. A gunshot rang out, but Ghost was already moving, his fist connecting with the second guard's jaw, sending him sprawling. Ethan ducked, drawing his own weapon, covering the exit. The man in the suit took a step back, his smirk gone. "Bad choice, Sheriff." More footsteps echoed from the back of the warehouse. Reinforcements. Logan grabbed Victoria's wrist and shoved her toward the door. "Go!" She hesitated for half a second before sprinting out. Ghost and Ethan fell into step behind Logan as they bolted for the exit, bullets tearing into the wooden crates around them. The three of them burst outside, gravel crunching beneath their boots as they sprinted toward the patrol car. Logan slid over the hood, landing in the driver's seat, while Ghost and Ethan dove into the back. "Hold on," Logan growled, slamming the gas. The tires screamed against the dirt, the vehicle fishtailing as it tore away from the warehouse. Headlights flared behind them, two black SUVs in pursuit. Ethan twisted in his seat, raising his rifle. "They're closing fast, then slow them down," Logan ordered. Ethan didn't hesitate. Leaning out of the window, he aimed at the lead SUV and squeezed the trigger. The windshield spider-webbed with cracks as the driver veered off course, slamming into a fence. The second SUV swerved around the wreck, its engine roaring. Logan gritted his teeth. "Ghost, tell me you got something." Ghost reached into a duffel bag, pulling out a homemade explosive. "Keep it steady." Logan jerked the wheel, narrowly avoiding a pothole. "I said steady, damn it." Ghost ignored him. With precision, he flicked open the car's sunroof, tossed the explosive behind them, and ducked. A second later, the road lit up in a ball of fire. The pursuing SUV had no time to react. The blast sent it flipping end over end before slamming down in a heap of twisted metal. Silence. Then Ethan let out a low whistle. "Remind me never to piss you off, Doc." Ghost simply rolled his shoulders. They started it. Logan kept driving, his mind already racing. This was no longer a containment issue. Los Sangre wasn't just running drugs or weapons. They were building something bigger. And if they were willing to go this far to shut him down, then the real fight was only beginning. And he needed to be ready. Logan didn't slow down until they reached the outskirts of town, pulling the patrol car onto a dirt road leading to an old barn. It was one of their safe houses, a relic from years past when his team had needed off-the-grid locations. He killed the engine, scanning the surroundings before stepping out. The night was silent, but silence didn't mean safety. Ghost and Ethan followed, their movements precise, automatic. Victoria arrived moments later in her own car, breathless but determined. "What the hell was that?" she demanded, stepping forward. "That wasn't just some drug operation." Logan exhaled, rubbing his temple. "No, it wasn't." He looked at Ethan. "You recognize that guy in the suit?" Ethan shook his head. "Not Cartel, that's for sure." Too polished. Too confident. Ghost crossed his arms, which means Los Sangre is working with someone bigger. He glanced at Logan. We need to call in the rest of the team. Logan hesitated. Calling the others meant escalating this into a full-scale war. But after tonight, war wasn't just coming, it was already here. He pulled out his old phone, the one he had sworn never to use again, and typed a single message. Ghost Protocol. Los Robles. Within seconds, responses came in. Thunder inbound. Shadow moving. Eagle in position. Phoenix mobilizing. Logan stared at the screen, his fingers tightening around the device. The team was coming. Victoria's voice pulled him back. I hope you know what you're doing, Sheriff. He met her gaze. So do I. The next morning, Los Robles woke up to an uneasy calm. Logan stood outside the sheriff's station, watching as locals went about their day, unaware of how close their town had come to turning into a battlefield. He sipped his coffee, scanning the streets. Something felt off. Too quiet. Too normal. Then he saw them, two men in dark suits, standing near a parked car, pretending to check their phones. Logan recognized their type immediately. Surveillance. They were watching him. Ghost appeared beside him. You see 'em? Logan nodded. They're getting bolder. Good, Ghost murmured. Makes them easier to deal with. Before Logan could respond, Victoria pulled up in her car, her expression tense. She stepped out, holding up her phone. I just got this, she said, showing him the screen. A message, simple but chilling. Stay out of this or people start dying. Logan took a slow breath. They're scared. Victoria frowned. They don't sound scared. They are, Logan said. Because they know what's coming. Before she could ask what he meant, his radio crackled to life. Sheriff, Ethan's voice came through. You need to get down to the rail yard. Now. Logan tossed his coffee, climbed into his car, and floored it. Ghost and Victoria followed. When they arrived, Ethan was waiting near a row of parked freight cars. His face was grim. You're not gonna like this. He led them inside one of the open train cars. The stench hit Logan first coppery, metallic. Blood. Bodies lay crumpled on the floor. Men, cartel enforcers by the looks of them, their weapons still holstered. Executed. Logan crouched, checking one of the corpses. A clean shot to the head. No struggle. No warning. Professional work. Ghost studied the scene. This wasn't a rival cartel. No, Logan agreed. This was a message. Victoria swallowed hard. From who? Logan stood, his jaw tightening. From whoever is really running this town. And just like that, the war for Los Robles had escalated beyond anything they had imagined. Logan stood over the bodies, his mind racing. This wasn't Los Sangre's style. The cartel preferred chaos, public displays of violence to instill fear. But this was surgical. Precise. Ghost knelt beside one of the corpses, examining the entry wound. Silencer, he muttered. Tight grouping. Whoever did this wasn't just sending a message. They were cleaning house. Logan's jaw tightened. That meant only one thing. Whoever Los Sangre was working with had decided the cartel was a liability. The power structure in Los Robles was shifting, and fast. Victoria took a step back, her face pale. So what? The people backing them just decided to start eliminating loose ends? Logan nodded. Looks that way. She exhaled sharply. Then we're running out of time. Ethan's voice came through Logan's radio. Sheriff, you got company headed your way. Black SUVs. 5 of them. Logan didn't hesitate. We're leaving. Now. Ghost moved first, slipping out the side of the railcar, his weapon drawn. Logan followed, keeping low as they made their way toward the service road. Tires screeched in the distance. The SUVs were closing in. They had minutes, maybe less. Ethan's truck was parked nearby, engine running. "Get in," he shouted. Logan barely had the door shut before Ethan floored it, the truck kicking up dust as it shot down the dirt road. In the mirror, Logan saw the first SUV pull to a stop near the rail yard. Men in dark tactical gear poured out, moving with the efficiency of trained operatives. Ghost turned from the passenger seat. "Those aren't Cartel soldiers." "No," Logan said grimly. "There's something worse." Victoria checked her phone, her hands shaking. "We need to get this story out, now. If we don't..." A bullet shattered the rear window. "Down!" Logan roared, shoving her forward as another round punched through the back of the cab. Ethan swerved, trying to put distance between them and the pursuing vehicles. "They're trying to box us in," he growled. "We need another route." Ghost scanned the road ahead. "Turn left. Now." Ethan yanked the wheel. The truck veered off the main road, bouncing over uneven terrain. The SUVs followed, their engines roaring. One pulled alongside them, a gunman leaning out the window. Logan raised his pistol and fired, hitting the man in the shoulder. He slumped, dropping his weapon, but the SUV kept coming. "Brace!" Ethan yelled. The truck slammed into the side of the SUV, sending it skidding into a ditch. 2 down. 3 still in pursuit. Ghost grabbed a rifle from the back seat, rolling down his window. He took aim at the lead vehicle's tires. A controlled burst, 3 rounds, perfectly placed. The tire exploded, sending the SUV into a violent spin before flipping onto its side. Victoria gasped. "Jesus Christ!" Logan ignored her, eyes locked on the last 2 vehicles. "We need to end this now." Ghost reloaded. "Then let's finish it." Ethan pushed the truck harder, the engine roaring as they tore through the desert road, dust and gravel spraying behind them. The last 2 SUVs weren't giving up. Logan could see their drivers focused, disciplined, not just cartel muscle but professionals. Whoever was pulling the strings behind La Sangre had deep pockets and even deeper connections. Ghost steadied his rifle, exhaled, and squeezed the trigger. The windshield of the nearest SUV cracked, but the driver didn't flinch. Armor-plated. These guys were prepared. "They're adapting," Ghost muttered. "We need a new plan." Logan scanned the terrain ahead. A narrow pass, flanked by rocky cliffs, loomed in the distance. "Ethan, take us through there." Ethan's hands tightened on the wheel. "That's a kill zone." Logan's voice was steady. "Only if we let it be." Ethan didn't argue. The truck shot forward, hitting the pass at full speed. The SUVs followed, closing the distance. Ghost loaded another round. "Now what?" Logan's fingers hovered over the detonator in his hand. "Now we flip the script." As soon as the second SUV entered the pass, Logan hit the trigger. A series of explosions erupted behind them, charges Ghost had planted earlier in case they ever needed an escape route. The rocks above groaned before crashing down, sealing off the pass. One SUV barely made it through. The other was buried beneath tons of stone. One left. The final vehicle accelerated, its driver desperate. Logan watched the way it moved, aggressive, relentless. This wasn't just another hired gun. This was someone with a personal stake in the fight. The SUV pulled alongside them. Logan turned just as the window rolled down. The man inside smirked. "Miss me, Carter?" Logan's blood ran cold. He knew that voice. Knew the scar that ran down the man's jaw. Miguel Ortega. Ex-military. Ex-ally. Now the right hand of whatever dark force had taken over Los Robles. "Ortega," Logan growled. "Didn't think you'd crawl out of your hole for this." Ortega chuckled. "Oh, this isn't just business, Sheriff. It's personal." He pulled a pistol. Logan moved first. A single shot cracked the air. Ortega's hand jerked back, the gun flying from his grip. But he didn't panic. Instead, he grabbed the wheel and swerved hard, slamming his SUV into the side of Ethan's truck. The impact sent them skidding. Ethan fought for control, but Ortega didn't let up. Another hit. Another violent shake. They weren't going to survive another. Ghost moved fast, climbing onto the truck bed. Logan barely had time to shout before Ghost leaped onto Ortega's SUV. The two men struggled, fists and elbows striking with brutal efficiency. Logan saw Ghost grab Ortega by the collar, wrenching him toward the edge. A final punch. Ortega tumbled out, hitting the dirt hard. The SUV, now driverless, veered wildly before flipping end over end in a cloud of metal and fire. Silence. Ethan exhaled. "Tell me that's the last of them." Logan stared at the wreckage, then at Ortega's unmoving body. For now. But deep down, he knew the war wasn't over. It was just beginning. The dust hadn't even settled when Logan stepped out of the truck, his gun still clenched in his hand. The wreckage of Ortega's SUV smoldered in the distance, flames licking at the twisted metal. Ghost stood a few feet away, his knuckles bloodied, his breathing steady despite the fight. Ethan was checking their own truck for damage, while Victoria leaned against the door, her face pale but determined. The battle at the pass had been a victory, but Logan knew better than to celebrate. This wasn't the end. If anything, it was just proof of how deep the rot in Los Robles had spread. Ortega had been a soldier, not a general. The real power behind La Sangre was still out there, still watching. Logan turned back toward Ortega's body, lying motionless in the dirt. He approached slowly, gun raised just in case, but as he got closer, he realized the truth. Ortega wasn't dead. Barely breathing, blood pooling beneath him, but alive. His eyes flickered open as Logan crouched beside him. "You should have stayed gone," Logan muttered. Ortega chuckled, a pained, rasping sound. "You really think this matters? You think stopping me stops them?" Logan's jaw tightened. "Who are they?" Ortega smiled, teeth stained red. "You'll find out soon enough." His body shuddered, then went still. Logan didn't need to check for a pulse. It was over. For him, at least. Ghost approached, watching as Logan stood. "What do we do with the body?" Logan exhaled. "Leave it. Let whoever he was working for find him. Let them know we're not afraid." Ghost nodded, but his expression remained grim. They both knew this wasn't over. By the time they made it back to Los Robles, the town had changed. People were outside, talking in hushed tones, eyes darting toward the sheriff's station. News had spread: fast gunfire, explosions, burning vehicles. Logan stepped out of the truck, feeling the weight of their stares. Victoria was the first to speak. "They're scared." Logan nodded. "Good. They should be." He moved toward the station, but before he could enter, the door swung open. Deputy Santos stood there, his face tight. "You need to see this." Logan followed him inside. The air was thick with tension. On his desk, a package sat unopened, no markings, no return address. "It was dropped off an hour ago," Santos said. "No one saw who left it." Logan reached for his knife, cutting through the tape. Inside, a single photograph. A group of men, standing in the shadows of a high-rise building, faces blurred, but posture unmistakable. Soldiers. Trained killers. And in the corner of the image, a logo, one he recognized instantly. Not Cartel. Not local. But something bigger. Ghost's voice was quiet. "Black River." Victoria frowned. "What's Black River?" Logan set the photo down. A private military contractor. The kind that doesn't exist on paper. He exhaled, rubbing his temple. Ortega wasn't the boss. He was just a pawn. Ethan's voice was grim. Then who's really running this town? Logan didn't answer. He didn't have to. He already knew the fight for Los Robles wasn't over. It had only just begun.